this is an example. I just wanted to do an explanatory video on how you're supposed to do your graphic organizer. You have been assigned a persuasive essay to do for social studies class, and in a persuasive essay, they're opinionated. You're trying to persuade somebody. Remember back to author's purpose: to entertain, to inform, to persuade. When we're persuasive, we're trying to get people to agree with us. You're opinionated and you're supposed to be opinionated. But when it's a formal writing assignment, you need to back up your opinions with fact. And that's what we're doing here. And in a standard 5-paragraph essay, you have your introductory paragraph where your opinion, which is in the blue box, and your thesis are. Your thesis is broken up into 3 parts: Part A, Part B, and Part C. This is all explained in the video that I did on the persuasive essay. Some of you have not turned in your thesis to me, which one you picked. Please make sure you do that today because this assignment's not going away. So for those of you who have and who are on this step, thank you. If you have not watched the video, please go back and watch the video on the persuasive essay. So here we are, you've picked your opinion. So you had a choice of 2 opinions. You either agreed that the government should be able to lock us down, or you thought that the government should not be able to lock us down. So in this opinion, you think the government should have the power to keep us locked down because they want to keep everybody safe. If that's your opinion, now persuade your reader. Make them understand your point and make them believe you and make them say, oh, you know what? She's right. We should be locked down because. So here's how you're going to prove that. In your thesis statement, you said, no, an individual's right to assemble is not more important than public safety because if something bad is happening, the government could use police powers to stop people from gathering in groups altogether, can limit how many people gather, and can limit when and where people gather. So your thesis has 3 components: point A, point B, and point C. I broke it down so that each point is in a box. Nice and easy. So, or at least it's easy for me because it's how my brain works, very visually and with color. So for thesis point A, the government could use police powers to stop people from gathering in groups altogether. That's what you think that supports your opinion. Okay, now we have to prove it. And we prove it with evidence from relevant sources. I went to the CDC. The website that I got the information from is right here. Please feel free to copy it and paste it in your browser and look for yourselves because that's actually what I need you to do after this. So in the actual essay, in the first paragraph, you're going to write about thesis point A, which is, again, the government could use police powers to stop people from gathering in groups altogether. So the government's going to stop people from gathering. How do they do that? The lettering in green is our words. We took the evidence from the CDC's website, which is right here, and we're going to use our words and then back up those words with evidence. So our words: the government is able to use their powers in order to keep people safe. Okay, great. Well, how are we going to prove that? We're going to prove that by saying the federal government derives its authority for isolation and quarantine from the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. So it's the Constitution. The federal government used the information from the Constitution to make sure that people can stay safe. And part of that right now is stopping the gathering of groups. So here are our words, and here's the proof. And the proof was found at this viable actual website. So the second part of it, in order to keep sick people from coming into the country, the government can do things to stop people from traveling into America from other countries. It can also make sure people can't travel from one state to another state because people can get sick. Well, okay, that's very important. Those were my words. The government can keep sick people away from each other, so that stops the gathering. So it's, if you're sick, you can't come into the country, and the government should be able to use their power to do that. They should also be able to say, if you're sick in New Jersey, you cannot go to Florida and get everybody sick there. If you're sick up in northern New Jersey, you cannot come to Long Beach Island and get us sick. That was my opinion. And okay, so I agree. But I have to prove what I wanted to say. And where did I do that? Well, here's where. It says, in the black letters, under Section 361 of the Public Health Service Act, there's the law, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services is authorized to take measures to prevent and the entry and spread of communicable diseases from foreign countries into the United States and between states. So this evidence supports my opinion. It says that the government, the federal government, is able to stop people, sick people, or whoever people from coming into America and stops traveling between states to stop the gathering. So this proof in the black lettering supports my opinion, which is in the green, which supports the thesis point, and the evidence was taken from that website. For the third, if you look in the third box, in my words, it says, the government told the Center for Disease Control and Prevention they have the power to make sure people stay safe every day by enforcing travel bans and quarantines. The authority for carrying out these functions on a daily basis has been delegated to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. So the CDC, which is the website where I got this information, the CDC is essentially the government, and they were given the authority to every day evaluate what's going on and to enforce the travel bans and enforce the restrictions to keep people safe. And I do agree that they should be able to do that if it's going to make sure that sick people stay where they need to be and everybody else stays safe. Now we're going to look at thesis point B, which is here where it says can limit how many people gather. So now here it is. The government can limit how many people gather. I agree with that. Now here I'm going to prove it. The pink letters are my words and the black font is the proof, the information that was taken from this website. If people break the quarantine law in some states, it is a crime. Yes, that is true. That is something I think, I agree with. And the evidence says these laws can vary from state to state and can be specific or broad. In some states, local health authorities implement state law. In most states, breaking a quarantine is a criminal misdemeanor. That means it's a crime. So there's the proof taken from the CDC's website on quarantines that proves that the government can limit how many people gather. This one was interesting, mainly because I really like to take cruises, so I thought this part was interesting. It says, in my words, I wrote, a do not board lookout was created by the government to make sure sick people don't travel and spread germs out. This stops them from gathering on planes, trains, buses, and even cruise ships. So the do not board lookout or the do not board list was created by the government to make sure that sick people don't gather on on methods of transportation, planes, trains, and cruise ships. And the proof says a public health board or lookout was also created at that time to ensure that a person placed on the DNB would be detected if he or she attempts to enter the United States through any port of entry, seaport, land, or crossing, or leave through an airport or seaport. What the evidence says is that the government has the right to stop people from coming into the country by air, land, or sea to keep us safe. And if you look at the third box, it says if people ignore the laws, then the local government in towns and states can call the federal government to help them stop them. And the proof of that says local and state public health officials can request the CDC's assistance if a person who poses a public health threat intends to travel. CDC helps ensure these people do not travel while contagious. So that means that if somebody's sick, the government has the right to say, nope, you're on the list, you're banned, you cannot travel. And that supports our thesis point because this evidence supports this that says the government can limit how many people can gather. How can they do that? By breaking the quarantine law a crime, by creating a do not board lookout list, and by allowing the states and other public health officials to call the feds in if somebody tries to break the law. The last part, thesis point C, which is right here, which is limitation when and where people gather, is down here. And it says the government can limit when and where people gather. And believe it or not, people are still gathering. The cops had to bust up a wedding someplace yesterday. So the supporting evidence, here's where the evidence came from. It is a reliable source. It is the CDC's actual website. So the government source, again, cdc.gov. My words were that each state is able to use their powers to make sure sick people do not come into their states by protecting their borders. My statement supports my thesis. and the evidence to back up my opinion. States have police power functions to protect the health, safety, and welfare of persons within their borders. To control the spread of disease within their borders, states have laws to enforce the use of isolation and quarantine. Well, what does that mean? That means that the evidence that I found backs up my statement that says each state is able to use their powers to basically to protect its borders, to make sure sick people don't come in. So, and if there are sick people, the police have the power to say, you're quarantined. You're quarantined, you're isolated, you're quarantined. And that supports how the government can limit when and where people gather. Because if they're sick and they're telling them to isolate, that they are literally preventing them from gathering. But it's in the best interest of the whole. So they can do that. In the second box, to support our thesis statement, my words were, to keep people safe, the federal government created a tool to help everyone understand what the rules are for people who are coming into America. And here's the proof. And this was taken again from this actual credible, viable source. On March 27, 2015, the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and CDC published a notice in the Federal Register to describe the tools the federal government has to ensure that people with serious contagious diseases that pose a public health threat do not board commercial flights or enter into the United States without a public health evaluation. What does that mean? That means that the federal government on March 27th, 2015, made rules that said that sick people cannot get there are laws and there are procedures in place to keep sick people from getting on commercial airline flights. So that means like a flight from Australia to here, or from Paris to here, or from London to here. Those are commercial flights, airplanes. To keep people from coming into America from other countries on airplanes if they pose a health threat. So if they're sick and they can get people sick, they're not allowed to come. So this was the government limiting when and where people gather, because if they're saying, no, you can't come here, they are establishing that limitation. So the proof supports my statement, which supports the thesis. And the information came from here. Last one. Limiting where people gather is very important. The government updated information about gathering to keep everyone healthy. Okay, that's my statement. Well, now I have to support my statement. The updates enhanced definitions related to control of communicable diseases and use current medical terminology where appropriate. The final rules are the first step in helping modernize the federal quarantine regulations. The CDC updated their information so people understand what's going on. And in order for people to understand what's going on and to have updated medical terminology, they made sure that the rules that are governing everything right now, so basically the rules that are saying what we can and cannot do, include current and most up-to-date medical information and terminology. So that information that's there, that was published by the government, updated and published by the government, supports or helps the government to be able to quarantine and isolate, which limits when and where people gather. And in the conclusion, because it's persuasive, you can offer any counter opinions, which means the opposite of what you think. So I happen to think, in my opinion, I'll scroll back up there, I think that the government should have the power to keep us locked down because they want everybody to be safe. That's my opinion. So the opposite or counter opinion would be what? That the quarantine is ridiculous, the quarantine is stupid, so on and so forth. So I had to go find evidence to support those opinions, and I did this, and here's where the supporting evidence was found. And you're more than welcome to literally cut and paste this and go to this website, USA Today. So in the green or the teal, whatever color that is, in the teal was my opinion, and then I found evidence to support that. And my words were, some people think the coronavirus isn't bad, and we are being told it is. And then there was a quote from Elon Musk who said, the coronavirus panic is dumb, the billionaire tech tycoon said Friday afternoon, sparking a debate about whether people are overreacting to the respiratory illness that has killed more than 3,800 people, mostly in China. The second piece of supporting evidence is people, or my opinion, was people on Twitter agreed with Elon Musk. So Elon Musk said that this is stupid and he doesn't think that it's serious. Okay, fine, he's allowed to think that. I don't agree, but that's what he thinks. And other people agreed with him. So that means other people also think that this is stupid. And here's the evidence. According to USA Today, more than 1 million people liked the Tesla CEO's tweet, which comes after multiple companion companies in Silicon Valley curtailed travel plans and urged workers to stay home as the virus continues to spread in the United States. So people liked his tweet, again, that they agreed with him, they think it might be stupid, and that came after travel bans were imposed out in California. And lastly, I wrote, I think the virus is serious and the government should keep doing things to keep people safe. Other people on Twitter agree and said this to Elon Musk. I guess someone with your type of wealth would consider it dumb. The rest of us are figuring out game plans for surviving a worst case scenario without unlimited resources and money. And that's the person's Twitter handle. So this last quote, this one goes against my opinion. This one goes against my opinion. It is the counter opinion, but this last one supports it. And I thought this would be a good segue into restating the thesis, which is what needs to happen in your conclusion paragraph. So again, I know I went through that kind of quickly, but I wanted to make sure I had this posted. That way it would help alleviate any confusion. I'm not in the classroom with you right now to have a document scanner on the board like we would normally do this. So here's again the example. Here's your opinion, the thesis, and the thesis is broken down into point A, point B, and point C. This example is posted. I do not want you to copy it word for word. Please don't do that. I want you to think, okay, the government could use police powers to stop people from gathering groups altogether. How did they do that? And what do you think about this? I think the government is able to use their powers in order to keep people safe. In order to keep sick people from coming into the country, the government can do things to stop people from traveling into America from other countries. And that the government told the Center for Disease Control and Prevention they have the power to make sure people stay safe every day by enforcing travel bans and quarantines. And then find the evidence. So in each box, you're going to find evidence and write your opinion, or write your opinion first and then find evidence, whichever way you want to do it, from actual websites and viable news sources. If you want to use the ones that I provided, that's fine. There's a ton of information on those websites. If you want to use my evidence that I already have, see in each box, I gave you 3 pieces of evidence. That's fine. You just cannot use my words. You have to write them in your own words. However you want to do it is fine, but you can't copy my example word for word. Okay? Deal? I trust you. Email me or call me if you need help.